In a world ruled by towering giants and proud elves, humans are seen as weak and powerless. The giants crush human homes without mercy, believing no human could match their strength. But when an unlikely hero named Kyle, an ordinary office worker and weekend knight, is summoned by ancient magic, everything changes. Kyle faces impossible challenges set by the giants, testing not only strength but courage, cleverness, and unity. As tensions rise, the fate of two races and their chance for peace hang in the balance. This story is full of drama, suspense, and surprising moments. It shows how courage and teamwork can challenge even the mightiest foes. The stakes are high. If Kyle fails, the giants will destroy the humans and elves. But if he succeeds, he may unite them to stand stronger than ever before. Keeper Sylvain's hands trembled as she traced the final rune on the black obsidian platform. The ancient magic was old and heavy with promise, but it offered no clear instructions. The glowing symbol spoke of a champion, a hero of the eternal flame, but how to call one forth remained a mystery. Time was short. The giants had crushed another human village only yesterday. Their great boots had smashed homes, burned fields, and scattered families like leaves in a storm. Around the ritual circle, the elven lord stood silently. Lord Thalin's silver armor caught the flickering candlelight, but his face was dark with worry. "Are you sure about this?" he asked quietly. "Last time we trusted humans, they died defending the eastern gates. While we debated strategy, they bled." Sylvain met his eyes with steady resolve. "We have no choice. The giants' power grows. They control sky and stone. Their mages stir storms like weapons. If we do not act, all will be lost." Outside, through the tower's crystal dome, storm clouds gathered fast and unnatural. Thunder rumbled low like the heartbeat of the earth. Below, human refugees huddled against cold walls. Children played with quiet pebbles, careful not to make noise. Loud joy invited giant attention, and death. "Begin," Sylvain commanded. Her acolytes took up the chant, voices rising in ancient tones. The portal shimmered and opened like oil spilled on water, dark and swirling, edged with gold. The air tasted of copper and crushed flowers. Through the shimmering tear, shapes appeared. Colorful tents, people laughing, a figure juggling fire in a dragon costume. Then, suddenly, something tumbled through. Kyle Jackard landed awkwardly on the obsidian floor. The sound was less the fall of a hero and more like a sack of potatoes dropped from great height. His gear was a patchwork of duct tape and dented armor. His foam sword, named Taxbane, slid across the floor. His wire-rimmed glasses sat crooked beneath a battered helmet. Kyle groaned, "Ow." The elves stared. Kyle stared back, blinking. "Is this some kind of game? Because I really need to find the porta." He stopped as Lord Thalin's disappointed voice cut the air like a blade. "Is this the champion?" The chamber held its breath. Kyle rubbed his head, feeling out of place in this strange world. He was not tall or strong. Just an ordinary office worker, a weekend LARPing enthusiast who pretended to be a knight. "Champion of what now?" he asked, eyes flicking between the pointed ears and glowing runes. "If this is immersive theater, great effects, but I've gotta pee." The elves whispered harsh judgments. "He looks like a child playing at war," one said. Another sneered, "He is human." Sylvain's voice was firm. The prophecy spoke of a human champion. No illusions. No tricks. Before further debate, the tower shook with a terrible force. Not the gentle settling of stone, but the deep, bone-rattling step of a giant. Outside, the crystal dome cracked under the thunder of footsteps. The tallest giant, Thorgoth, the Render, strode into view. He was a mountain of muscle and stone, skin like cracked granite. 40 feet tall, carrying a warhammer heavy enough to crush buildings. His laughter shattered windows 3 blocks away. "Little elves, playing with magic," his voice boomed. Another hero for me to step on. The giants had long made sport of resistance. Every champion, every desperate attempt, crushed beneath their feet like insects. They wagered on how many pieces the next one would make. But Kyle, despite the fear in his chest, stepped forward. His breath caught as he took in the giant's full height. Holy shit, he whispered. Thorgoth noticed and laughed again, a sound like boulders tumbling down a mountain. Is this your champion? A child in costume? Can he even lift a sword? Kyle reached for Tack's bane out of habit. The foam blade wrapped in latex suddenly shifted. Edges sharpened. Weight settled solid in his hand. Where once a play sword lay, now rested a real steel blade, glowing softly with magical runes. The elves gasped. Thorgoth's expression flickered, confusion mixed with rage. Soft as dough, Thor mocked, gesturing to Kyle. Weak as water. This is human strength. With a cruel grin, he drew a massive stone from his belt. The size of a car, smooth and polished by giant hands. Even children here can lift the first stone. Humans. Pathetic. He dropped the stone to the ground. It cracked the pavement, sending tremors through the ancient foundations. Try to lift it, little human, Thor dared. Fail, and my boot will end your shame. The gathered elves and humans held their breath. Kyle circled the stone like a wary man inspecting a strange beast. You want me to lift that rock? He asked slowly. Thorgoth's teeth gleamed. If you can. Kyle crouched, fingers slipping under the stone's edge. His stance was poor, untrained, back curved badly. Any real warrior would have cringed. But something in his eyes changed from confusion to fierce focus. Years of pretending to be a hero at weekend fairs merged with the sharp need to survive. The stone shifted, just a little. Kyle's face reddened with effort. Veins stood out on his neck. His glasses slid down his nose, and he had no free hand to push them up. The duct tape creaked. The stone rose another inch. Then a foot. His arms shook, his legs quaked, but the stone lifted clear of the ground. You want to know your problem? Kyle gasped, sweat pouring. You've never had to load a trebuchet counterweight into a pickup at dawn. Step by painful step, Kyle moved forward, the stone balanced in his arms. The silence was thick, waiting for lightning to strike. Then, exhausted, the stone dropped, embedding itself inches deep. But he had moved it. Thorgoth's face twisted through disbelief, rage, and something like fear. Trickery. Elven magic. No human could. No magic, Sylvain said. Her voice rang like bronze bells. He is bound with no enhancements. That was human. Only human. Kyle sat panting, armor falling apart. Does anyone have water? Or like, Gatorade? I think I pulled something. Thorgoth raised his warhammer. But the refugees in the courtyard had changed. No longer cowering, they stood taller. Their eyes shone with something new, hope. Sylvain stepped forward, magic crackling at her fingertips. You can kill him. But you cannot kill what he proved. Humans are stronger than you thought. The giant hesitated. Behind him, his kin muttered uneasily. The stone lay still, moved by human hands, proof as solid as gravity. Thorgoth backed away. Perhaps you are right. But we crave a challenge worthy of us. We will return. Kyle's breath came ragged. And every time you see a human, you'll wonder, could he lift that stone? Could they all? The giants left like retreating storm clouds. The difference was clear. The people they returned to fight were not the same. Kyle wiped sweat from his brow as Sane helped him to his feet. You are the champion, she said. I'm Kyle from accounting, he corrected, wincing. Weekend LAR enthusiast, part-time pretend knight. But I guess I pissed off a giant with a real sword. Lord Delon stepped forward, respect now shining in his eyes. And now we teach you to fight properly. Kyle looked at his sword with new weariness. My stage combat certification doesn't cover actual combat. But his eyes already studied the retreating giants. Something had changed. The best surprises never came how anyone expected. The training grounds had seen better days. Once a place of elegant elven mastery, it now hummed with the chaotic energy of humans and elves working side by side. Kyle stood awkwardly among warriors far more skilled than he was. His armor, patched and reinforced with scraps of metal, rattled with every step. His sword, once foam, was now a heavy steel blade that still felt foreign in his hands. Master Caleb, the elven sword instructor, sighed loudly. Kyle, the sword is an extension of your arm. Not a club to bash enemies. Kyle wiped sweat from his brow. My LAR instructor said if someone's trying to kill you, you forget the fancy moves and go for the knees. Caleb gave a look that said he hoped Kyle wouldn't forget the knees at the wrong time. The elves moved with a grace that seemed almost magical, fluid, precise, poetry in motion. Kyle tried to follow, but it felt like translating a foreign language with a bad dictionary. Every step was awkward, every strike off balance. Mira, a fierce human volunteer with scars from giant raids, watched him with quiet amusement. Not everyone fights like they're dancing, she said. Fighting is survival. Kyle nodded. Yeah, and survival is a lot messier than poetry. The truth was, Kyle felt like he was failing. His muscles ached in new ways, and his body protested every lesson. Yet, something deep inside was building, not skill, exactly, but understanding. He'd always been good at patterns, spreadsheets, tax codes, traffic flows. Now, he saw patterns in combat too. Every failed move, every bruise, every sigh from Caleb was filed away. One evening, after another grueling session, Kyle sat with Mira and the elves around a fire. What if, he said slowly, we stopped trying to make me fight like an elf? Kaith, the proud elven captain, looked offended. The forms have been perfected over millennia. Kyle smiled weakly. Yeah, and you're stronger, faster, more coordinated than me. What if we fight like we really are? Clumsy, stubborn, unpredictable. Mara nodded. That's human. That's why giants expect us to fail. Exactly, Kyle said, warming to the idea. They expect strength against strength, trick against trick. But what if we change the game? The idea sparked debate. Some elves argued tradition, others grew curious. The old walls of mistrust between the races cracked under new hope. Training changed. Instead of perfect form, they worked on tricks and traps. Humans dug concealed trenches with grim enthusiasm. Elves lent magic to the efforts. Kyle taught the humans to spot patterns in giant patrols. Slowly, the alliance grew. One day, a giant messenger arrived. His footsteps shook the ground and dew fell from the trees. Not Thorgoth this time, but an older, scarred giant with serious eyes. The throne guard demands satisfaction, he announced. The human who moved the first stone must face our champion in single combat. Refuse, and we level this city before sunset. Kyle's stomach twisted. Single combat? That's unfair. Lord Delon nodded gravely. To refuse would confirm their view of our cowardice. And give them excuse for slaughter. Kyle looked around. Humans and elves who had begun to believe in something more than survival stared back. Fine, he said, surprising even himself. But I choose the terms. The giant laughed. You choose terms. Champions meet, set terms, honor is satisfied. Kyle's mind raced. 3 challenges. First, your champion's choice. Second, mine. Third, we both lift something heavy. The insult landed exactly as Kyle intended. Giants were proud and quick to anger. Dawn, 3 days, the giant messenger snarled before leaving. Sylvain turned to Kyle. That was brave or very stupid. Why not both? Kyle muttered. 3 days to learn how an office worker could survive single combat with a giant champion. Training intensified. The elves taught flowing combat forms. The humans focused on practicality. Mira sharpened knives during meetings. Kyle listened to ideas flying like arrows, traps, snares, hidden pits, ropes. We can't outmuscle giants, he said. But we can outthink them. Elves and humans argued, laughed, planned. Old mistrust melted into cooperation. Kyle's accounting skills proved useful, tracking resources and probabilities. The plan was not perfect, but it was hope. The day before the challenge, Kyle stood on the tower balcony with Mira. You could run, she said quietly. Kyle shook his head. Where would I run? This world has giants. And the portal back closed behind me. Besides, can I really go back to spreadsheets after this? Mira laughed. You're not what we expected. Maybe the best heroes are accidental ones. Kyle watched elves teaching human children magic. The city prepared, not in fear but in hope. Tomorrow would bring battle. Giants versus the unlikely alliance. Kyle's heart beat steady beneath the armor. He wasn't a hero. Not yet. But he would fight. Dawn rose red and cold. The challenge ground lay between the city and the wasteland, neutral territory where giants had crushed many before. Kyle stood at the edge, feeling every muscle scream in protest. His reinforced armor clanked as he moved, a strange mix of weekend warrior and real fighter. Tax Bane, his sword, still hummed with quiet magic at his side. The ground shook. Thorgoth appeared, but the champion was another giant, Gromar the Skull Renderer. 50 feet tall, muscles bulging like mountains, carrying a club carved from ancient oak. His glare burned with cruel amusement. This is your champion, human. Gromar's voice rumbled like an earthquake. I have stepped on bigger bugs. Kyle's stomach turned, but he forced his voice steady. Gromar the Skull Renderer. I accept your challenge. First contest, your choice. Combat. Gromar raised his club. Single blow. You strike me, then I strike you. Whoever stands wins. The crowd held its breath. This brutal tradition usually ended with the smaller fighter broken on the ground. Deal, Kyle said. But I get a running start. Gromar laughed, a deep, shaking sound. Run all you want, little bug. It won't matter. Kyle took 10 steps back, then 100. The giants and elves exchanged confused looks. Mira caught his meaning. Oh, she breathed. That's either brilliant or insane. Both, Kaith whispered. Kyle sprinted forward, arms pumping, breath wheezing. His armor rattled. He looked ridiculous, but determined. At 50 feet, Gromar raised his club lazily. At 25, his eyes narrowed. At 10 feet, Kyle dropped into a slide he had practiced 1,000 times at fairs and training. He slipped under the club as it whooshed past. Landing behind Gromar's ankle, Kyle swung his sword. Not for a deep cut, but the precise spot Mira had taught him, the nerve cluster where tendon met foot, unguarded by bone or armor. The blade struck true. Gromar bellowed, lifting his injured foot, suddenly balancing 50 feet of muscle on one leg. Arms flailed. The giant's club, meant for 2 hands, became a liability. Physics took over. Gromar fell backward like a giant tree finding its final rest. The impact cracked the ground and sent a shockwave through the silent crowd. Kyle panted, sword shaking in his grip. I struck you. You haven't struck me. That means I win. The silence was perfect. Giants, elves, humans, all stared. A lone crow cawed, then fell silent. Trickery. Thorgoth roared from the giant's side. Strategy, Sylvain replied calmly. The terms were met. Gromar struggled to rise, fury replacing shock. Second challenge. Your choice, Bug. Kyle straightened, knees aching. Trust fall. Gromar's confusion echoed around the field. Trust fall, Kyle repeated. You fall backward, I catch you. Then we switch. Whoever drops their partner loses. The giants exploded in laughter. You want to catch me? Impossible. You will die, Gromar said, grinning like a man welcoming his own destruction. Kyle knew it was true, no human could catch a giant falling. But those were the terms. First, Kyle fell backward into Gromar's hands. The giant caught him easily and set him upright with exaggerated care. Your turn, Kyle said. The laughter stopped. Gromar looked at the small, exhausted man before him, then at the watching crowd. Pride and ancient honor twisted his expression. If you trick me, no tricks, Gromar said firmly. You fall, I catch you. Simple. It wasn't simple. Impossible. Gromar weighed more than a loaded bus. Kyle looked like he struggled with grocery bags. But Gromar turned, arms crossed. He met Kyle's eyes. I'm ready. The giant fell. Time slowed. 50 feet of muscle and bone toppled backward like a monument lying down. The shadow swallowed Kyle whole. Gasps escaped the crowd. Kyle didn't try to catch Gromar. That would be suicide. Instead, he dropped flat and rolled, positioning himself where Gromar's massive shoulders would land. The giant's weight crashed not on Kyle but around him. Gromar's shoulders hit solid earth on either side, while Kyle supported the neck, channeling the force into the ground. It lasted 2 seconds. Kyle's bones creaked. By the challenge's letter, Kyle held the giant's weight. He wheezed. I caught you. Gromar sat up slowly, confusion, disbelief, and a flicker of respect crossing his face. Leverage, Kyle said, accepting Mira's hand. You fell. I was there. The terms are met. Sane announced, 2 challenges complete. 1 remains. The giants brought forth their challenge stone. Not the first stone, but a monstrous, building-sized boulder. Gromar lifted it overhead with effort, the ground compressing beneath. Your turn, Bug. Kyle approached the stone and studied it. Then, he did something unexpected. He sat down. I forfeit the 3rd challenge. The crowd erupted. Giants bellowed victory. Some elves sagged in defeat. Kyle raised his hand for silence. I forfeit because no human can lift that stone. He stood, voice clear across the field. But that is not weakness. He pulled a simple pulley from his belt. More ropes appeared from allies, wooden beams carried by teams of humans and elves working together. In minutes, they built a crane around the stone. This is cheating, Thorgoth protested. This is human, Kyle corrected. We cannot lift stones with muscle alone. So, we build, cooperate, find another way. Elves chanted, lending magic to human engineering. Humans hauled ropes, elves guided the load. The stone rose, slow but undeniable. Not one champion, but many working as one. You think this proves something? Gromar growled. I think it proves everything, Kyle said quietly. You giants stand alone. Humans and elves, we are strong together. The stone reached its peak, then lowered gently. Gromar stood silent. The giants shifted uneasily. They had won the 3rd challenge but lost something harder to define. You fought with honor, Kyle jackered, Gromar said finally. Stupid honor, but honor nonetheless. Thanks, Kyle replied. I think this changes nothing. We are strong. You are still weak. Now everyone knows weak doesn't mean helpless. The giants left without their usual threats. Troubled by thoughts too new for comfort. The Alliance watched them go. We survived, Sane said quietly. Sometimes that is victory enough. We changed the game, Lord Delon said. Kyle changed the game. Kyle sat heavily, exhaustion like a weight. All I did was not die repeatedly with style. Still, you did what heroes do, Sylvain said. You showed us what's possible. That night, humans and elves mingled, sharing stories, drinks, dismantling mistrust. Kyle was pulled into conversations. Asked to demonstrate the trust fall, he declined. Asked to explain the pulley, he promised to stay and help build the alliance. You know there will be war now, Mira said later. The giants will not accept this. They won't, Kyle agreed. But this time, we are not alone. They stood together on the balcony, watching the city below. Mixed patrols, forge fires, cooperation. The drums of war beat far away. Closer, human voices rose in song, while elven magic lit the night. Not in fear, but hope. The champion of the eternal flame was not what anyone expected. Kyle Jackard, accountant turned accidental hero, had given them something better than a champion. He had given them each other. The giants' footsteps faded into the distance, but their threat lingered like dark clouds on the horizon. The city below buzzed with quiet energy, elves and humans working side by side, rebuilding, strengthening, preparing. Kyle sat heavily on a rough stone bench, exhaustion settling deep into his bones. He still felt the weight of every step, every breath taken during the challenge, but something stronger than pain filled him, determination. Sylvain approached, her eyes bright with unspoken praise. You have shown us what is possible, Kyle. The giants will not forget today. Kyle shook his head. I'm not a hero. I'm an accountant who got lucky. And somehow, now, I'm part of this. Luck has little to do with it, she replied. You carried hope. And hope is stronger than any stone or warhammer. Outside the walls, patrols moved cautiously. The Alliance had turned the city into a fortress, not just of stone and magic, but of trust. It was fragile, humans and elves had centuries of mistrust to overcome, but it was real. Mira joined Kyle on the bench. You taught us to fight together. Not just side by side, but as one. Kyle smiled faintly. I just showed what's possible when we stop pretending to be something we're not. Their peace was broken by the urgent arrival of scouts. A giant force was gathering beyond the eastern ridge. Not just warriors, but war machines, massive siege engines powered by cruel magic and muscle. The giants are coming, the captain warned. They will test us again. The city stirred to life. Smiths hurried to repair weapons, mages whispered ancient spells, and the people steeled themselves. Kyle found himself at the war council, surrounded by elves, humans, and scholars. Strategies poured in, traps, ambushes, magical barriers, but the giant's strength was overwhelming. We cannot fight them head-on, Kyle said. But we don't have to. Remember the crane? The pulley? We build, we trap, we outthink them. Lord Delon nodded. A war of endurance and cunning. Over the next days, the Alliance dug trenches, set snares, and laid traps. Humans worked with elven mages to create illusions that hid their movements. The giants, powerful but slow, struggled to adapt. In the shadows, Kyle trained harder, learning the ways of real combat. His clumsy moves slowly gained purpose. Every bruise, every failure was a step forward. But not all were confident. Some elves doubted the human strength, some humans feared the elves' magic. Old wounds threatened to reopen. One night, a secret meeting formed among those who feared the alliance would fail. "We cannot trust them," an elf whispered. "Their magic is dangerous. They hold power we do not understand," a human replied. "And pride blinds us all." Kyle overheard their doubts. He felt their fear, but also their pain. This was a battle not only against giants but against centuries of division. He stepped forward. "We fight better together because we are different. That is our strength. Giants see only muscle and magic. We see hope and heart." The next morning, the city's gates stood open to all who wished to defend it. Humans, elves, and even creatures once enemies joined the cause. The giants arrived like a thunderstorm. Their war drums echoed across the valley, shaking the earth. Siege towers loomed, catapults launched fire, and the ground cracked beneath their march. But the alliance was ready. Traps ensnared giant feet, sending them crashing. Magic twisted light, confusing eyes. Teams of archers and fighters struck with sudden, deadly force. Kyle fought alongside Mira and Kaith, no longer clumsy but fierce. Each step was battle-hardened. Every strike counted. At the heart of the battle, Kyle faced Gromar once more. The giant's rage burned hotter than before, but Kyle moved with the cunning of a man who had learned from failure. "Fight dirty," Mira shouted. "Fight smart." Kyle circled, dodging heavy blows, striking weak points. The battle was brutal, exhausting, and unforgiving. But victory was not only in defeating giants, it was in standing together, refusing to fall apart. When the dust settled, the giants retreated, battered and weary. The alliance had survived. But the war was far from over. The giants had retreated, but their shadow stretched long over the land. The air was thick with the scent of smoke and earth turned to mud. Around the city, elves and humans moved together, tending to wounds, rebuilding walls, and sharing quiet moments of relief. The alliance was alive, but fragile. Kyle stood on the city's highest tower, looking out over the mixed patrols below. His armor was worn, his body bruised, but his eyes shone with a new kind of fire. Around him, the echoes of battle had faded, replaced by the hum of hope. Mira approached silently, resting a hand on his shoulder. "We did more than survive. We changed the story." Kyle nodded. The giants expected easy prey. Instead, they found a new kind of strength. Sylvain joined them, her gaze steady. "You taught us to believe, in each other, in the impossible." The city below was alive with life again. Children played games where humans and elves taught each other skills. Magic mingled with craft, songs rose with laughter, and for a moment, the world seemed brighter. But the drums of war beat faintly in the distance, a reminder that peace was only a breath between storms. Kyle knew the giants would return, stronger and angrier. Their pride demanded it. But now, the alliance was ready, not just to fight, but to stand together. In the council hall, plans were laid for a future built on trust. Supply chains balanced, defenses strengthened, and alliances forged beyond old boundaries. Kyle's spreadsheets became battle maps, and his calculations the backbone of strategy. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Kyle stood once more on the tower balcony. The wind carried whispers of distant forests, of ancient oaths, and of futures yet unwritten. "Do you think we can win?" Mira asked quietly. Kyle considered the question, eyes tracing the horizon where sky met stone. "Define winning," he said. She smiled. "Can we beat every giant in battle? Probably not. Can we make conquest so costly that they choose peace? Maybe. Can we build something new while we try?" Kyle looked at the mixed crowd below, humans teaching elves, elves lending magic to human crafts, a city alive with cooperation. "We already are." He smiled, feeling the weight of impossible dreams made real. Sometimes, winning isn't about destroying your enemy. It's about proving you won't be destroyed. Mira laughed softly. "You're not the hero we expected." "No," Kyle said, "I'm the one we needed." The drums beat again, louder this time, but no longer a call to fear. They were a rhythm of resolve. Kyle raised his sword, not a weapon of war, but a symbol of unity. The giants would come again. But now, the people they faced were different. Stronger. Together. And ready.